Welcome back to the OCAD Youth Sports Report. My name is Avishai Sol, and this week has been very fun because I am back playing basketball. We started our rec league this week. Since lockdown in Ontario a few months ago, I haven't been able to play organized basketball until this week. I've been really missing it. You know, it's my favorite sport. Here's the thing though. Part of what's great about these sort of open to all leagues is the range of ability. You get a lot of different kinds of players. You get some guys who are in great shape, some guys who are not in great shape, guys who are in their 40s, and then teenagers, people who are really good and people who are really casual. And that range makes for an interesting game. I'm sort of upper middle class in this regard. I'm rarely the best guy on the floor, but I'm one of the better ones. Another wrinkle is that the teams in these rec leagues are organized pretty randomly. You don't know who you're going to get. And this was the first week, and as happy as I was getting back on the court, there was one detractor from my glee. And that was I had a lot of teammates on the casual side, let's just say. It started at a first glance when I realized I was the second tallest on my team. I'm 5'10" in shoes, which is fine when you're going to synagogue, but on a basketball court, it's not really what you want. Uncoordination was a general theme for the roster we had, and just by coincidence, the other team they had someone who could dunk. So that sort of speaks for itself. We were down by 20 in the fourth quarter, and the most casual guy on our roster took a full court, coast to coast, dribbling like this, by the way, and basically just missed the whole backboard. And I'm sitting on the bench watching this happen, and it's a lot of like,
no, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
a lot of like internal pain. I mean, listen, I'll play basketball with anyone and on any court anywhere, but I'm expected to win with these guys. I'll try. I mean, but it's going to be a long season. We have a lot to get into in the world of sports this week. Let's get started. First in NFL news, we of course have the Super Bowl, the big game, the finals. You guys already know who won because this comes out on Mondays and the Super Bowl is on Sunday, but we are filming on Friday, and so I don't know who's won. So this is your opportunity to tell me about sports. You tell me who won. You do a little work this time, okay? Next in some Olympic news. I tried to save most of the Olympics last week for this week because I really wanted to have some information to tell you. One being Shaun White competed in his fifth and final Olympic snowboard halfpipe competition. While he didn't reach the podium, he finished fourth. We still have to take our hats off to this great American athlete completing his Olympic career. He's one of the greats, both resonating with fans and in terms of accolades. Women's hockey, the Canadian team trucked Sweden to advance to the semifinals. The American figure skater Nathan Chen won gold, and the Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva tested positive for banned substances. So things are going very smoothly. Next in some NHL news, the Montreal Canadiens hire Martin St. Louis as an interim coach to replace the fired Dominique Duchamp. Martin St. Louis is, of course, an ex-player, a Hall of Famer, and a champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And like with any ex-star going into coaching, there's always an air of excitement. We're yet to see if he'll be able to turn the Canadiens' losing season around, but only time will tell. Next, we have a lot of news with the NBA because we had the trade deadline. A lot of transactions went down, including the 76ers acquiring James Harden in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond. The Dallas Mavericks traded Kristaps Porzingis to the Washington Wizards for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans. The Boston Celtics traded Josh Richardson and Romeo Langford to the Spurs for Derek White. The Pelicans traded a bunch of young pieces and picks to the Trailblazers for CJ McCollum and Larry Nance Jr. The Pacers traded Domantas Sabonis to the Kings for Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. There was a four-team trade in which the Bucks got Serge Ibaka, the Kings got Dante DiVincenzo, and the Pistons got the corpse that was once Duke's version of Marvin Bagley III. The Clippers got Norman Powell, the Hornets got Montrezl Harrell, and finally the Toronto Raptors traded Goran Dragic to the San Antonio Spurs in exchange for Thaddeus Young and Drew Eubanks. Eubanks, the Raptors have since waived. It's a lot of things going down. A lot of information being thrown at you real quick. And of course, the big names, the all-stars, the Sabonis moves, McCollum, and of course, the Harden-Simmons soap opera, which has come to a head this past week, will be talked about ad nauseum for the next, month, year. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk to you about the Thad Young move because it confused a lot of Raptors fans. And rightly so. Thaddeus Young is a forward. He is a power forward, a small forward, a center, but he essentially plays the position where most of the Raptors' depth resides. Siakam is a power forward. Scotty Barnes, power forward. Chris Boucher, power forward. Achua is like a PFC. OG Anunoby is a small forward, power forward. We have a lot of depth at the same position, so why go out of your way to acquire him? There must have been other suitors for Goran Dragic. I'll tell you why. The two biggest holes in the Raptors roster were a true rim-protecting center and a backup point guard. The Goran Dragic market was complicated to begin with for a number of reasons. The first being that Dragic was still signed to his contract from when he was an all-star. He has since not been producing at that same quality. He's still a valuable player, but he's getting paid the same amount of money as when he was a star. Just part of the game. But it's hard to find a trade partner who wants to acquire a B-level asset for an A-level price. One team who doesn't care about that is the San Antonio Spurs, who know that they are not contending for titles and are fine acquiring players like Dragic, eating that salary in exchange for young assets and picks. We did send a pick in that trade. Keep in mind, a first-round pick this next year, and I'll get into that. Thad Young is not a backup point guard, nor is he a true center, but what he is a little bit of both. He's a playmaker from the forward position. He can slide to the 5. He can slide to the perimeter. He is somebody who can create offense for himself and others, and that's really the biggest problem here. We don't need a backup point guard who is 6'2" and can shoot. We need a backup playmaker to help the bench produce its own points. When Fred VanVleet sits, that offense gets really stagnant really fast. Thad Young will help with that. He will come off the bench and set up guys like Chris Boucher, who can definitely knock down shots, but he can't really create for himself or create for others. We've been using Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam as sort of secondary point forward, secondary playmakers when Fred VanVleet sits, and Thad Young is just another player like that, a point forward who can help create offense for that bench unit. Now, very quickly, I want to talk about the picks. We don't want to give up young assets. I know the Raptors are overachieving right now, but we are still a team with a young core moving towards a future, not a present. So why would we give up a first-round pick? I'll tell you why. It's a weirdly savvy move from Masai Ujiri. First-round draft picks are paid like first-round draft picks. There are rules in place about the minimum or maximum you can pay a first-round draft pick. As the Raptors continue to win games and progress in the standings, they will find that their position in this coming draft will fall. They are now looking at, instead of a 15 to 20 range for the pick, they are now in the 20 to 25 range. And all of a sudden, that sort of middle of the draft, the sort of 20 to 40 range, and there isn't a hard, concrete pecking order for who should go where, all of a sudden, paying a first rounder late in the first round and paying a second rounder early in the second round, the money is almost more important than the pick. You can save a couple bucks, and let's be real here, Masai Ujiri is a drafting genius. He'll probably get the best guy anyway. Next, in the world of soccer, here's some feel-good news for you. Cristiano Ronaldo, his eldest son, the 11-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo Jr, is following in his father's footsteps and has signed his first football contract with Manchester United's youth team. Always nice to see athletes' kids achieve these kinds of things, following in their parents' footsteps and moving along the line in the spotlight and in the world of professional sports. So I want to quickly think about athletes' kids, because it's a really weird and really unique case study. Think about the Currys, Dell, Steph, and Seth, the Bryants, Joe and Kobe Bryant, the Mannings, Archie, Peyton, and Eli, the Hulls, Bobby and Brett, only father-son tandem to each score 600-plus goals in the NHL, Gordy, Mark, and Marty Howe, Leon, and Leon Spinks. There have been tons of successful athlete families, multi-generational, whether it's siblings or father and son, sisters, brother, sisters. But so it makes you think about, does having a famous athlete for a parent or an older sibling, What does that do to the psychology of an athlete as they come up? First thing you got to keep in mind is that they have access to levels of talent and ability that most of us just don't have. I started playing basketball with my dad and his friends when I was 15 years old, and they're mostly a bunch of 40-plus-year-old Jewish guys. And I had a great time, but I can imagine that my trial by fire would be more intense if I was Steph Curry playing with the Charlotte Hornets where his dad played for a while. Young kids get exposed to these peak level athletes at a very young age, so their sights are not only higher, but also their exposure. They get exposed to better training, better facilities. Instead of wondering about how you're gonna work out in your neighborhood, you're at the Raptors facility. You have all of that. And a parent who knows exactly what to do. Athletes' kids also have that added pressure though. My point is this: as you, sports fans, as you continue to observe these upcoming drafts in these upcoming years, whether it's the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, the NBA, whatever draft you observe, keep an eye on those athletes' kids. You look at the board and you say, oh, it's Joe Schmo Jr. I love Joe Schmo. Maybe his kid, that's interesting. He could really pass the puck. Or maybe Julio Gonzalez is his dad was a great, I don't know, running back, whatever it may be. But keep an eye on those athletes' kids, because they have certain advantages, certain advantages that others just don't. And for our final segment, we have this week's Athlete of the Week. This week's Athlete of the Week is my fish, Gil. Gil is a 3-year-old Siamese fighting fish, and the reason he is this week's Athlete of the Week is because he ate my other fish, Swimmy. While that's not really what you want as a pet owner, you have to admire the athleticism at display here. Rest in peace to Swimmy. This has been the OCAD Sports Report. My name is Avishai Sola, and I will see you all next week.